We finally go over the results from the stat draft. Who won? How did David do? Doug? Me? Did I win? We'll go through it all today on Locked On Hornets. Plus, Kemba Walker, something interesting happening with him, and we'll give you another mock draft. All today, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson with the Days of Thunder hat, and I know that because I've totally seen the movie and not because you texted me that it was the Days of Thunder hat. I know that because I've seen the movie for sure.
You have not. And I want to do a podcast. I was talking to David about this. David Walker, I want to do a podcast where all three of us get together and we make each other watch something that we haven't watched, and then we talk about it. I think that would be a good podcast.
Oh, we force each other to watch bad Hornets games. We're just evil to each other. You have to watch Portland this year. You have to. Well, that's it.
No, that wouldn't be fun. No, this is about making you finally watch Days of Thunder. That's really we would only do one episode, and it would be making you watch Days of Thunder.
And I'm from Catawba County. There's no excuse. I know lines. I know impressions based off of what has happened in Days of Thunder. Hit the pace car. I know some of this stuff.
Hit the pace car.
I see. That's right at home. That's Catfish, North Carolina. I just haven't seen the movie. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also Locked On NBA. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at, you guessed it, monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And finally, we have a Locked On Hornets newsletter introducing the new daily Locked On Hornets newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now, lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. We thought a fun Friday show going into the weekend would be to finally go over the results from the stat draft. Doug came up with this fun idea at the beginning of the year. We each, including David, he is a part of this as well. So Doug Branson, David Walker, and the old Walker, the new Walker, Walker Mail. We all drafted different stats going into this year, and we took the over or the under. And interesting results. Doug, this was your baby. I give you the floor to tell everybody the results and, to steer the ship wherever you want to go with this.
Well, David's not here to defend himself, so let's talk about him first.
Love it. Yes. Let's criticize him.
All right, so we did 5 rounds of this, and David actually scored on 4 of his 5 picks. I hate to count his 3rd overall pick, or his 3rd round pick, I should say, which was Seth Curry, games played over 8. If we do this again in this offseason, I'm banning games played as a stat. You cannot do that
We
anymore.
all took advantage of it, though. Every single one of us did.
I know.
All 3 of us. Which, to pile more onto David, I feel like ours was within the spirit of the game more so than Seth. All Seth had to do was log into 9 basketball games this year. And so I'll pile on to David. We still took advantage of the rule, though.
At least Seth Curry did not skirt by it. Although Seth Curry probably didn't play in as many games as maybe he would have liked. He did say in his exit interview that at least Charles Lee was honest with him, and communicative with him about when he would play, when he would not play. I'm sure Seth Curry would have liked to log more games, but they were strategic when they used Curry and in what roles. But he does play more than 8 games. So that was his 3rd round pick. His 1st round pick, his 1st overall selection, was Brandon Miller, points per game over 17.3. So all of these, if you missed the rules of this, you picked over or under on a stat. And so we took last season's stats. And so he went over 17.3, which is how many Brandon Miller averaged, how many points he averaged last season. Well, he crushed that. Brandon Miller, 21 points per game. Didn't get many games, although I'm fairly confident. I don't know about you, Walker. I think if he had played all 82, he was still crushing 17.3 points per game.
I would have guessed so. I guess if you want to talk about the injuries, if it does Miles take away enough with all the games that he played? There's probably a conversation, but I'm with you. I think Brandon would have surpassed that number. I don't know about crushing. You think crushing? You think so?
Well, 21 versus 17. I mean, that's nearly
you're
4
wrong.
points. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, if it was 18,
you're not wrong. He would have hit it. He would have hit it for sure.
All right, his second pick was LaMelo Ball turnovers under 3.8, and surprisingly, he hit this one. The LaMelo Ball doing a little bit better in his turnovers, 3.6. So he just skirts by. This one was a question mark up until the end of the season. LaMelo got his turnovers under control, particularly right at the end of the year, and 3.6.
Now, this one's an interesting one, maybe for us to kick around a little bit. So LaMelo, the turnover percentage was down 2. We went through actually this stat earlier this week and talked about it, but surprising because I think the idea, we'll speak for David because he's not here. This is our power now. I think the idea was you draft him because you didn't feel like he was going to have the basketball in his hands as much, or that the responsibility wouldn't be nearly as much on LaMelo to score and facilitate for everyone. So that means Brandon dribbles it up every once in a while. Trey Mann comes in and helps you out quite a bit. Miles Bridges also is not going to be suspended the first 10 games going into a season, and he's actually going to be active. He's an Iron Man. So I think that's the idea. That quickly turned out to be false, and LaMelo was the guy. And if he wasn't out there, then odds are you were screwed offensively, but he still comes in under that number. So he got there, but I think in a very different way than what he expected.
Yeah, and I said when we talked about turnover percentage that you have to take into account that he was shooting like 100 times a game. And when you're shooting that many times, it's going to limit the amount of times that you're trying to make plays for others. And so that's going to just naturally limit your turnovers. Look, some of the best playmakers and best usage eaters in the league have high turnover percentages.
They turn it over all the time. I mean, they just have the basketball in their hands all the time. So
And so then you go to the second layer of that conversation, which is are they and coaches will talk about this all the time across the league. When you look at turnovers, you have to look at what turnovers are they making because they're trying to make a play and the defense sniffs it out, or the person on the receiving end wasn't ready for it, or there was just a slight miscalculation, versus them getting themselves into trouble, over dribbling, not paying attention, careless turnovers that typically result above the free throw line and result in transition points for the other teams. Those are the bad, don't want those turnovers. But your James Hardens, your LeBron Jameses, although this season his turnovers were actually a problem for the Lakers. But so many of these guys, these elite players, have high turnovers because they're trying to make plays. So we'll see what happens. That was a long rant, but we'll see what happens next year. So he misses on LaMelo Ball 3-point percentage over 35.5. It actually drops to 33.9. That was a significant storyline this season, Walker.
It was. That's one where we could also set up camp and talk about this one for a while. So what's funny is I think a lot of the points that you just made talking about the turnovers can be attributed to this as well. Having a heavy shot diet, not necessarily the best shot selection, which was because you want LaMelo hoisting up bad shots rather than a worse player hoisting up a decent look.
Yeah.
You're still probably taking LaMelo in that scenario if I present both choices to you. So that means LaMelo, who also didn't want to dish it, wasn't getting to the paint, which has been an issue. Even if the frequency in terms of him getting to the paint goes up, the accuracy doesn't. So all of that spells LaMelo having a poor shooting season. And also, if you are going to defend the three-point line, you're going to defend him. You don't need to defend all that many other people. If you're going to pack the paint and yet be a little afraid of some other guys shooting threes, it's LaMelo. And then you're forcing him to shoot the 35-footers and the one-legged 35-footers. So all that spells his worst three-point shooting season of his entire career, including his rookie season.
All right, and we end on his fifth pick, which he also hit on, Miles Bridges' field goal attempts under 17.5. This one was super dicey. He really, with both LaMelo's turnovers and Miles Bridges' field goal attempts, he just got right under what he needed. Under 17.5, he ends up with 17 field goal attempts, which I think, I didn't track this all the way, but I'm going to attribute to the end of the season after Miles went on that incredible heater, and then he took a rest day and then came back and just could not hit a shot. You saw him stop taking as many shots as he got to the end of his season. I think that probably had something to do with it.
All right, so David hits on 4 of the 5. We can share some more of those comments about Miles with one of my stat draft categories that also had to deal with Miles taking shots. So at the end of the season, that helped David out, and it helped me out quite a bit. After that hot stretch, it looked like we were both going to lose, but we end up taking home at least one of those victories. So let's move on. We'll continue to talk about what me and Doug did in the stat draft. Coming up next on Locked On Hornets.
Bees everywhere!
Go through Doug's categories, go through my stat draft selections, and then also we have to tell you something about Kemba Walker. He's playing again, but in what capacity? We'll tell you on the other side. Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. With all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, you can go beyond just managing money and start building wealth. You might be surprised at how much you're spending on things like food delivery or streaming subscriptions, but with Monarch, you'll see exactly where your money is going so you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, Monarch makes it easy to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for long-term goals all in one place. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's never been smoother. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals together, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. So David went 4 of 5. Doug, looks like you lost the stat draft this year. Me and David, we tied for first, and you ended up losing a couple. Losing 2, you got 60% of your stat drafts. 60%? It's okay. Take us through what happened.
Well, I think the ones that I missed on are more interesting than the ones that I hit on. So LaMelo Ball games played over 22. That was my first pick because I believed that LaMelo was going to be healthier, and he was. Wasn't as healthy as anyone would have liked, but certainly more than doubled that 22. Brandon Miller, 3-point attempts over 6.7. That was an easy one, again, because that was telegraphed by Charles Lee. I mean, I guess we couldn't be certain that Brandon Miller was actually going to take to that, and maybe this was affected by Brandon Miller not playing the entire season. Maybe this would have leveled out a bit, but I went over 6.7 3-point attempts, which was already pretty high.
No,
and he got
sure.
to 10.9 in the few games that we saw him this season.
Yeah, good call. Charles Lee was telegraphing this. He told us that Brandon Miller was going to be shooting more threes. Plus, you'd probably just run into that with more minutes played. If Brandon played a lot by the halfway point of his rookie year, he didn't play as much at the beginning of his rookie year. So you're collecting all of those minutes. You're collecting all of those shot attempts. It makes a ton of sense, which is why you're probably right about Brandon crushing the PPG increase from 1 year to 2, but that includes the 3-point shot attempts, which you talk about crushing it. Yeah, he absolutely crushed that one.
Brandon Miller rebounds over 4.3 was my 4th pick. He got to 4.9. My reasoning behind that was I just thought Brandon Miller was going to do a lot more across the board. That didn't look great early on, and then he started to up his rebounds. Particularly, he went through a little bit of a scoring slump. And I thought he really kind of focused on how can I affect the game. I would look at that next, when he gets a full season, fingers crossed, next season, I would look for him to continue to do that. How can he affect games? Is his ball handling going to improve? Is his playmaking going to improve? Rebounding improve? I want that 4. It went from 4.3 to 4.9. I think it's got some room to grow still.
For sure. Well, and dicey too, right? Because here we are talking about the minutes increase for Brandon. Man, it's not like you expect him to get 8 rebounds a game, but I thought he'd be like 5.5, something like that. Perhaps there being a little more cushion between what he got this year in the very limited sample size and what he posted last year, but still got the increase. And I think that's going to improve next season, depending on what the scheme is for Charles. But yeah, 4.9, still a close one.
All right, here's what I missed. My 3rd pick was Josh Green assists over 2.3. he got nowhere near that. 1.6. He didn't even get 2 assists per game. No, 1.6. Josh Green. Maybe that's why I've been so mad at him lately, because he cost me this stat draft.
Well, take me through this one, because we talked about, it was well documented that coming into this year, Josh Green was an extremely low usage player, and that with Luka, with Kyrie, he would come into this team and have the same role because he's not expected to handle the basketball with LaMelo and Brandon. That was the discourse surrounding Josh Green. So take us through why you chose the over on the assists per game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some fair criticisms of me for doing this. It was a little bit of a reach, okay? I'll admit that. But here was my thinking. I didn't think that LaMelo was going to reach the usage levels that he did, which, I mean, he got to, if not exceeded, some of the Luka years. So, like, I mean, I thought, hey, he's coming to a team where he's going to get a little bit more run. You know, I didn't think it was going to be a massive, like, they weren't going to give him a huge role. And they were going to focus on his defense more than anything. I also thought that the Hornets would get out and run a lot more than they did. They didn't. And I think at times LaMelo got out in front of his own offense. And so there weren't as many opportunities for Josh Green. I thought most of those assists would come in transition. And he just, like, he was more involved as a guy that would receive assists from other players, more so than I thought. And this was a little bit of a hot tip that I got from Nick Angstad, that he was.
I was going to say blame Nick, because I remember you talking about it. Blame Nick. We can blame the Locked On Mavs.
It's certainly not
host.
my fault. It's certainly not my fault.
Yeah.
It's Josh Green's fault, if anything. And the final one that I missed was LaMelo Ball drives per game. I went over 17. And this was just a hoping sort of thing, because I think to be an elite offensive guard in this league, you have there's really like a tier of 2 or 3 guys like Luka, SGA, maybe one other, maybe De'Aaron Fox, that are in this tier by themselves of like elite scoring guards, and they all drive it like 20 plus times a game. And then everybody else sits around where LaMelo did last year in like the 17, 16, 18 kind of deal. So, but he didn't get there. It was 15.1. I thought he made a focus of trying to drive the ball more earlier in the season, trying to pick up fouls, got frustrated. The refs were not giving it to him. And then defenses, after Brandon Miller got injured, defenses doubled the bleep out of him and just took that away.
Some of the other guards, by the way, like Cade, Jalen Brunson, just on drives, foul hunting, but also just driving into the paint. I think those are some of the guys there. I thought this one was going to hit. I liked this pick. I remember when you made it, even right with all the 3-point shooting, the worry would be that with all the talk about increased 3-point shooting and the systems we know Charles Lee comes from, that LaMelo would just take more shots and maybe that would hinder his drives. But I also thought, wide open offense, let your facilitator get to the paint, kick out. That was the idea. I thought you were going to hit. Didn't happen. So that's frustrating. Okay, you want to go through a couple of mine, or do you want to wait and then come back next week? We got a lot to fit in here. How do you want to do this?
All right, well let's do the easy one, which is Nick Richards' games played under 67. He only played in 21 because he got traded, and that was essentially the crux of your argument there, that he was going to get traded.
That's right. Basically it was Nick Richards is going to get traded this year, and that's what happened. That was essentially what that was.
All right, let's get this one out of the way, because the other two, the one you missed on and then Miles Bridges, are worthy of a conversation. But Mark Williams, 3-point attempts over 0. Congratulations.
Yes.
He got over 0.
Yes.
And then Mark Williams blocks over 1.1. I'm not sure. I didn't put what he finished with here. I'd have to look it up, but he did hit on that.
Perhaps a little bit there.
The 3-point, by the way, 1.1. I mean, come on.
Thought it was a roamer, man. I went with some responsibility. I went with some new things that he was going to be asked to do, and so I thought Mark Williams would take the over there. But yeah, you're right. Mark Williams, more 3-point attempts. He told us it was going to happen. It's just we needed to believe him. Finally, he showed us that he'll take a few, and then he gets the over on block. So we'll talk about some of the other more interesting ones coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Speed's everywhere.
I had a Miles Bridges stat that I drafted, and I had a LaMelo Ball stat that I drafted. Kemba Walker playing basketball again will fit in a mock draft. That's all coming up next. LOH.
Mark Williams, 1.2 blocks. You barely got that one.
Yes. During the break, Doug said Mark should have had 1.5 blocks. Come on.
Oh, see, I think you misinterpret. When I said pathetic, I wasn't talking about you making the pick.
Right.
I was talking about 1.1 blocks in the previous season. That was pathetic. That he got 1.2 blocks to get you the over. That's pathetic. The man should have had a block and a half. He's got the arms of a condor. What are we doing?
It's the late rotation stuff. We were dead on it. And it was just the timing. Whether I don't even know if late rotation is the right word.
It was some
the
of
timing,
that.
Right? Yeah, it was some of it, but it's the timing, right? God, we were all over it. Charles Lee talked about it at exit interview day. It was just so obvious, right? And he just the timing, which could go into health, which could go into. He started to get better at it. Honestly, that was an encouraging sign that he got better at it, and then got over the average because of it at the end of the season. But for a while, yeah, that was it. It was just him being in position and not getting to the basketball in time, not getting out of the floor in time. That's what it was.
I'll say this. You can be healthy. The word healthy can mean a lot of different things. You can be healthy and also be affected. Like it is concerning to me that we continue to see the timing issues, which for blocks is a lot about lifting your body off the ground. And then we continued to see him be out of games for left foot injury management. Now, Mark would say that was the team. That wasn't me. I wasn't asking to be out of the games for left foot injury management, but obviously the team felt a need there. I think it's going to continue to be a talking point. And if he's not traded and he comes into the beginning of the season with those same issues and with those same designations, then I don't know what we're doing.
No, for sure. Can't deny that. Can't deny that. I do think he got better, though. I think there was you got to see it improve, but if it's another talking point, then it's a real issue. Let's move on to the other ones, Doug. Talk to the people.
Your first selection in this one was Miles Bridges' points per game under 21, and that hit at 20.3.
Way more comfortably than I thought, too. So when Miles was going on a tear and he was averaging as many points as anybody in the NBA for a 5-game stretch, except for SGA, who just might win most valuable player. When he was on that run, we didn't necessarily expect that to drop off. He wouldn't go for 35 a night, but he might go for 27 a night. If he did a 20-point performance for a couple of games in a row, you would expect Miles to be the guy down the stretch. I got helped with tanking. I got helped with other guys taking his spot, but also Miles helped me. After he went on that 30-game stretch, man, or 30-point per game stretch, there were a lot of bad games from him scoring. Just got cold. So that really set the table for me to get the over on this, or get the win, I should say, on this. And then the load management, the tanking, all of it. That's what sealed the deal for me.
In March, he averaged 22.6 points per game, and that's taking a 7-point game, 2 11-point games, and a 15-point game. But earlier in the month of April, he had a 46-point game, a 35, followed by a 31-point game, and another 35-point game against Golden State. In February, he averaged 21.4. In January, he averaged 21.4. And I think part of this bet, correct me if I'm wrong, part of this bet was that he would take a lesser role. And he didn't because of injuries. So,
yeah, lesser role for sure. That was the whole bet. It was my first pick, my first round pick, and I almost missed on it. But that's the one I felt so good about with LaMelo. I was betting on LaMelo staying healthy. I was betting on Brandon Miller taking a bigger role. I was betting on Mark, who came into the season not healthy, did all that, and I barely hit it. All right, final one.
All right, this is the one you missed on. Your fourth pick was LaMelo Ball, 2-point field goal percentage, over 50%, and he did not get there, 47.8% on the season.
This one's tough. I wanted this one to happen just like I wanted your drives to hit. I wanted both of us to succeed in that position, and it just didn't happen that way. This goes to the LaMelo not being able to finish nearly as well as we want him to once he gets into the paint. I think part of this goes back to some real improvement the previous year in that 22-game season that he had, where he was making that effort, right? I think one thing that's helpful, I think one thing that is comforting is he did increase his free throw attempts per game, but that actually held steady. So I was happy to see that. He did get to the lane a little bit more. It's just he's not hitting, man. It's just not falling for him, and it hasn't been falling for him each of the last few years, despite him being really tall. Right now, Doug, his height on the basketball court, its function is to make any pass that he wants to, which is helpful. Like, that's a really valuable skill. He can make any pass he wants to because of his height. He can shoot over the top of defenders, even with that low release. Being 6'7" probably allows you to get away with some of that low release stuff. Brandon Miller actually has the same thing. But that height will help you there. The height does help you with some rebounding. Like, LaMelo, pretty good rebounder as a point guard. It's not really helping him finishing in the lane, and that's an issue. This is where the hitting the weight room in the offseason comes into play, and the guy just hasn't gained a lot of muscle over the years. He hasn't gotten better in that area of the floor. And I think that's a big deal from just increasing your percentage there by 3, just getting to 50. That goes a long way in your efficiency as a basketball player.
It's funny. I think the first thing that we think of with LaMelo Ball and his offense is, when it comes to his scoring, is his deep three-point shot, like his ability to extend defenses and take those shots and make those shots. But it was actually his floater that was the determining factor in most games over whether or not he was going to have an efficient scoring night or an inefficient scoring night. Because but part of that was he wasn't hitting threes, but part of it was because his float game was so much more effective this season than it was last season. And in fact, I was looking this up while you were talking there, and his field goal attempts on floaters, according to pivotfade.com, 100th percentile, meaning nobody took more floaters per game at 4.8 than LaMelo did this season. And his field goal percentage was 45.8% on those floaters. That's 68th percentile. But I said 45.8. You were looking for a 2-point field goal percentage over 50%. That's under 50% because his layups, he only shot 52% on those, and that was 28th percentile, and that's at a frequency of 19.5, which was 27th percentile. So he was not getting all the way to the rim, and when he wasn't hitting at a rate that could counter the number of floaters that he was taking and the number of threes that he was missing. And
Doug, that frequency, that dropped a lot the second half of the season because it wasn't that bad, like at the halfway point. Great. Those are great numbers. Like I think all those passed the eye test too. I think those match. Thank you very much, Days of Thunder. I think those all match what we were watching. All right. Kemba Walker, let's give him a shout, folks, because he's back, baby. He's playing in the Big 3 league this year. He is playing, I don't know what team he's playing for. I can look that up. But we also have former Hornet Dwight Howard suiting up. Big Al, he played in the Big 3 also. So Kemba Walker, going to be suiting up, man. Pretty cool to see.
I think Jason Richardson, former Bobcat, and I think Stack Jack. Don't check me on either of those.
Stack Jack, yes. Stack Jack, yes.
Stack Jack for sure. I think Jay Rich played in like the first season of Big 3. Again, don't check me on that, but I'm fairly certain he did.
Kemba Walker is going to play for I'm still looking. Man, I cannot see this team anywhere. I'll still look it up.
The Wichita Ghosts. Just make up a name. Nobody's going to look this up.
That's it doesn't interest me either, man. I do.
The Beantown Boogers.
There you go. My Big 3 story is going the first time it was in Charlotte. I got to interview Ice Cube. It's still the biggest celebrity I've gotten to interview. And I went there. It was cool, but the allure was, wait, is that Katino Mobley? Hell yeah, man. I haven't seen Katino Mobley in a while. Is that Moochie Norris with the big hair? Oh, man, I love Moochie Norris. It's kind of it. Are we done? Okay. 4-point shots. All right. I don't think I'll ever come back. But it was cool to see those guys. And Rashad McCants got a huge boo session when he was announced because of all the Carolina fans that do not like Born to be Hated, Dying to be Loved anymore. Nobody likes that guy around here. Mock draft time, baby. Hit us. What you got?
Ace Bailey officially declares for the NBA draft, sends Rutgers his love, but he is OUT out of there. And he is taken number 3 by the Charlotte Hornets in the latest No Ceilings mock draft on Wednesday, April 23rd. They write that Many like to focus on Ace Bailey's flaws, and to be fair, they're concerning. He doesn't look to get to the rim much, and he posted poor assist numbers. Still, he's 6'10", a good shooter off the catch. He's comfortable putting it on the deck. He rebounds and makes plays on defense. When you zoom out, his big picture skills contain value, and if he can work through his flaws, he could achieve a fantastic outcome. There's definitely some risk involved with taking Bailey here, but the upside is worth that risk. Edwards, not a fan of this pick.
Yeah.
But that's the pick from No Ceilings.
Yeah, and not a fan of Ace Bailey being in a Hornets uniform. And to be honest, it's not like we've given him a glowing review in a Hornets uniform. He just scares me. I just don't want it to not work out. I'm just scared.
If this were last season, I would have said, if this were last season, Ace Bailey probably goes number 1 overall because that was not a very talented draft. But if this were last season, I was more on board with them taking the swing on Tijan Salan. All the risks, I understood it. I understood he was a project. I understood it was going to take time. I still understand that with Tijan. I was good with that within the context of that draft. With this, when you're looking at options like VJ Edgecombe or Derek Queen or Trey Johnson, who I really like, Jeff Peterson's going to have to come out and do a really good sales job on why you're taking a player in Ace Bailey who looks like he could be a prototypical super wing, but his assist number, his assist numbers were poor. They were just like rock bottom. Like nobody with those assist percentage numbers becomes like an all-around, all-star, all-NBA talent. Like it's just like if Ace Bailey did it, he'd be the first.
I honestly, over the years of covering the draft, and I think I've been broadcasting in some capacity for almost 10 years now. I think with doing the NBA draft, one thing that seems to play is playmaking. Because if you're never able to shoot, if you're never able to score all that well, playmaking matters. And I feel like playmaking is something else that you can just lay back on, or you can fall back on and have a foundation. And if he doesn't do that, then it's a little scary.
Yeah,
especially if he can't shoot very well, right? Especially if the efficiency isn't there. To that point, if this guy was an electric scorer and he didn't pass it, it's like, okay, who cares? You don't have to pass it. But if you don't pass it, right, then I would want the efficiency to be there in droves, and it's just not there.
Well, that's why we're not super worried about Brandon Miller. Like when you look at the ball handling that he has to improve on and the playmaking that we want to see him improve on, if those come along if they come along a lot, then we're talking Paul George level. If they come along a little bit, then you can still lean on his outside scoring and say, okay, this guy can be a high level role player on a good team, and that's not necessarily what you wanted out of a second overall selection, but you would take it over the many Hornets misfires in the draft that we've seen in the past, and I think that's the danger with Ace Bailey. Final question for you before we end the show. Do you know why Harry Hogg said hit the pace car?
Because he had crashed into everything else so far, so he might as well hit the pace car.
Because he had hit every other god dang thing on the racetrack.
All right. See, I know it. I've already seen it somewhere. I just haven't seen it. It's been told to me too many times to where I know it. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Make sure you make Locked On NBA your second listen. Doug hosts it. He also writes for everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. Make WFNZ's Weston Walker your third listen. You knock out Locked On Hornets and Locked On NBA before 12, and then you tune in to 92.7 FM at 12 o'clock, and you listen to Weston Walker on Sports Radio, again, 92.7 FM. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.